Once upon a time, there lived a boy with a fish on his head. Whether this was a practicality or for companionship, no one was quite sure. He was known to consult the fish in all matters of great importance, and the fish would reply to the best of its ability. How the fish remained alive without water to breathe was yet another uncertainty. Perhaps it had developed this unique ability to breathe air during its long time on Earth, or perhaps it simply didn't see the value in such a thing as breathing. The truth is, once you've been around for as long as the boy and the fish, these trivial matters bear no great importance. What was important in the boy's eyes was his garden. The usual earthly certainties were somewhat suspended in the boy's garden, with things growing upwards and downwards and sideways, and sometimes even in circles and shapes. This greatly pleased the boy, as he had never been one for ordinary things. The fish thought that the idea of growing things was silly. It much preferred when things just were. Therefore, it was particularly pleased when one day something more mysterious than usual came to be. The idea that something could be, without becoming, quite disrupted what the boy usually believed about the nature of his garden, as well as that of his very existence. What surprised the boy the most was that he didn't remember planting anything in this particular area of the garden. He tended to reserve the spot for his very best pebbles and the occasional shell on behalf of the fish. If there was one rule his garden tended to follow, it was that if the boy planted something, usually a seed but not always, then something would grow, and it would keep growing until it had had quite enough. But in this case, the boy hadn't, so it shouldn't. The thing was without a doubt the tallest in the boy's garden, which made it all the more curious that it had spent seemingly no time growing. As the boy neared the thing, it became increasingly evident that it was almost certainly alive. In fact, it seemed to be breathing, although you should know by now that doesn't tell us much. The fish thought it appropriate to reach out and touch the breathing thing, and he told the boy as much, so the boy did. Yet as soon as the boy had touched the mysterious thing, it disappeared completely, and the boy was yet again left staring at pebbles and dirt. The boy, however, was not as shocked as he supposed he should be, as in his experience, strange things only get stranger. Therefore, the boy did the strangest thing he could think of, and promptly wiggled away, which of course meant the fish had to wiggle away too. The fish hated wiggling, but the mysterious thing seemed to appreciate it, as it too promptly wiggled back into existence. Excellent, thought the boy. The thing that hadn't been was again. The fish once again thought it appropriate to touch the thing, but told the boy to be more stealthy this time. And since the boy didn't have any names, he could pretend the middle one was stealthy. At the present moment, he had discovered two things. One, the mysterious thing didn't like when you looked at it, and two, it seemed increasingly intent on throwing the boy off. One thing that the boy had failed to consider in this particular investigation, however, was that for every meter he climbs above his garden, he increases the likelihood that they will encounter the crows. The crows were peculiar little beings who moved constantly as a murder and seemed rather intent on doing just that. Despite this, they usually managed to go unnoticed by the boy, who was quite short and didn't like looking upwards too much for fear of upsetting the fish. The fish could hear the crows approaching from the distant woodlands, but the boy was having far too much fun to be doing something as dull as listening. The thing with being somewhat attached to the boy's head was that it meant that the fish had to be somewhat involved in all the boy's ongoings. So as the boy was absent-mindedly dangling from the mysterious thing, avoiding eye contact, as thoroughly as you can avoid eye contact with a thing with no eyes, and narrowly avoiding being thrown to the ground, the fish was too. But whilst the boy was having an excellent time, the fish felt sick. If you have never experienced the terrifying ordeal that is a fish being sick, I very much recommend you don't go trying to cause it. It can be almost guaranteed that you will see and hear some things that you'll be seeing and hearing in your dreams for a long while. This seemed to be the least of their problems, however, as the mysterious thing was beginning to reflect in the crow's beady eyes. They'd reached the garden. The fish would have covered its eyes if it had hands, but instead it had to watch as the crows got closer and closer and began to circle the bottom of the mysterious thing, beady eyes focused on the boy. As they circled and squawked, everything that was growing in the boy's garden seemed to catch in their feathers and get dragged towards the center of the garden where the boy was busy dangling. The fish was going to throw up. As the telltale gurgling and squirming was just beginning atop the boy's head, it seemed that the mysterious thing finally succeeded in throwing the boy off. He slithered down, 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 back towards the earth. The crow's eyes flashed red at the sight of the boy only a claw away, and they took a step, and another step, and opened their beaks, and suddenly a cool wind ruffled their feathers, and they looked up and caught one glimpse of the stern look on the fish's face, and took off. What a strange day, thought the boy. How wonderful. And he put all thoughts of the mysterious thing that was, then wasn't, then was again, into his back pocket to think about when the weather changed.